maybe you're just considering decluttering. Maybe you've done a little bit here and there in the past, but now you really want to dive in. Or maybe you've just started on your journey and you want to know what to expect, because forewarned is forearmed. Here's what you should know before you declutter your entire home. Let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura and I help you live a simpler, happier, more spacious life. And a great way that you can achieve that is through decluttering. But there are some things that you should know beforehand. And I want to say upfront that I am not telling you any of these things to put you off. There are tons of benefits to decluttering, and I will link some other videos that I've done that talk about those. But having said that, I do want to paint a realistic picture, because not everything is, like you see it in a magazine. And I feel like sometimes we've gone from keeping up with the Joneses to keeping up with the minimalists. So I do try to share the messy side of it as well, so that if you do experience that, you know that it's perfectly normal. You don't feel that you're doing anything wrong. I don't want you to feel discouraged. Look who decided to join us. But I also think it's really important to know what the potential obstacles and pitfalls might be, because then you are much better equipped to deal with them. They won't discourage you because you'll be expecting them. It's actually why all of the categories in my decluttering course start with a discussion on the potential obstacles and how to overcome them, because I want to send you into battle fully prepared. So let's talk about some of the biggest ones right here. Now, this first one is going to sound counterintuitive, but you have probably experienced this if you have ever done a decluttering spree, or maybe a deep clean or a big tidying session. And that is that it gets worse before it gets better. There will be piles everywhere. You'll be pulling things out of cupboards, out of drawers, off of shelves, and you're going to be laying it all over every available surface, on your bed, on the floor. And you'll have those days where you don't have the time or the energy to put that stuff back, so you'll end up with that stuff lying all over the place, maybe for several days at a time, until you can get back to it. It's just a job that creates a lot of mess before you actually get around to tidying up that mess. The reason I want you to keep this in mind is because if you are just starting out on your journey and your goal is that really tidy, uncluttered home, and you start decluttering and you start creating those piles everywhere, you're going to feel like, what's the point? You're going to feel like you've taken 10 steps back. You'll wonder why you even started. You'll think, I should have just left all this stuff alone. I should have just left it where it was. But the reality is that you have to accept that you're going to crack a few eggs along the way, but push through that, because on the other side of that mess, on the other side of the effort that you are expending, is the clutter-free home that you crave. It's probably one of the biggest lessons that I want you to take away from this, because I know firsthand how discouraging it can be. I go through that phase every single time I declutter. This is the point in the process where I feel completely overwhelmed and regret everything. The second thing is, and look, you are not going to get great results unless you do this. I do this every single time I declutter, even if I'm only decluttering a tiny space, because I know that it's just so much better. It does take longer, but the results are worth it. Empty the space. It does take longer, but the results are so worth it. Going through clothes while they're still hanging up, or going through books while they're still on the shelf, means that you're probably only going to get rid of a handful. I think the main reason for that is because, when stuff has been in the same spot for a while, you tend to become blind to it. You don't really notice it anymore. You have this tendency to just gloss over it. So I think when you're looking at things kind of in situ, your brain is kind of trying to pick out the standout things. What are the really obvious things? On the flip side, once everything is out of that space, then you're really going to pay attention. You're going to go through that stuff one by one, and you're really going to be more discerning about what you put back into the space. But it also just allows you to actually clean the space as well. Plus, once everything is out, you might have a better idea of how it could better go back in, how it could better fit together. But definitely empty the space first. Like I said, it will take a little bit of extra time, but you're going to get much better results. Really don't know why I bother dressing this bed, but the next one is something that you really need to be aware of, because it will have a big impact on your decluttering journey, and that is that it is just plain exhausting. Make sure that you are pacing yourself and that you're giving yourself enough time, like give yourself more time than you think you will need to complete the task. And look, you don't have to do a big decluttering session. I think when we think of decluttering, we think about spending, an hour or two or an afternoon really diving in, but break it down, take it in small chunks, either tiny little areas or just small chunks of time. Make sure that your body is fueled beforehand, eat a filling, nutritious snack. Keep yourself hydrated. What are you doing? It can be surprisingly physically demanding. You're probably moving a lot of stuff around. You're going through stuff one by one, moving things from here to there, taking things out, putting things back. And it's actually the putting things back that can be kind of extra exhausting, because you think once you've gone through everything, that's it, job done. But no, really your job then is just beginning. That's when you have to actually, take the bins out, put the stuff back, put all of the donation stuff in your car, shred all of the papers, etc. Honestly, sometimes that can take as long, if not longer, than the actual decluttering itself. But then there's the mental drain too, because you are just making decision after decision after decision. Should I keep it? Does it spark joy? Do I love it? Do I use it? When was the last time I used it? If I got rid of it, how would I get rid of it? Would I dump it? Should I recycle it? Should I donate it? If I donate it, where should I donate it? And if I decide to keep it, where should it go? Like, where will it live back on the same shelf that I took it from, or should I move it somewhere else? Where makes sense for this thing? It's just non-stop. Do not underestimate how taxing decluttering can be. And you may also experience emotional drain, because going through stuff generally brings up a lot of memories. It might bring up a lot of judgment, could bring up a lot of opinions. There can just be a lot of feelings attached to things, even if they're not sentimental things, but things like clothes, books, stuff like that can actually have an attachment. Again, because that can be really tiring, make sure that you're taking things in chunks of time and you're giving yourself plenty of time to rest and recharge in between. Give yourself some breathing space. Speaking of feelings and being attached to things, this next one is something that I think a lot of us kind of don't foresee at all. Certainly I did not, and that is the separation anxiety that we feel at the thought of letting something go, even if we didn't, feels kind of any sort of emotional, sentimental attachment to it, even though we think it'll be something relatively easy to part with. Suddenly, when you're faced with that reality, the separation anxiety really kicks in. It's just really easy to feel aloof about all of your stuff and, feel that a lot of it doesn't matter until it's time to say goodbye. All of a sudden you develop a very deep attachment to things, even if you haven't used it in recent past, even if you forgot that you had it. Something that you never even spared a second thought for previously suddenly becomes a prized possession. It makes no sense at all, and I always have to laugh because I think we associate that more with children. Children have lots of toys that they never play with, but as soon as you suggest, as soon as you even hint at the possibility of getting rid of one of those toys, you may as well have suggested that they amputate a limb. They just cannot be parted with it, and they beg and they plead and they tell you that they're going to play with it all of the time. And we think it's silly, but actually as adults we do the exact same. It's irrational, but it happens. And there are lots of deep psychological reasons why we feel this attachment to things. It might be a bit of a comfort blanket for us. It could be that our stuff kind of is, a badge of honor or a symbol of success. It could be a powerful reminder, like a powerful memory of someone or something. It could even be a scarcity mentality. Now, none of those are topics that I am qualified to discuss with any sort of authority, but I have experienced that separation anxiety firsthand, and I will say that it does get a little bit easier over time for me. It's never fully gone away, but it has got easier, and I've learned to kind of recognize when I'm doing it. So let me briefly give you a few ways that I have found to combat it. You can start with the really easy things, the things that are broken or damaged, or the things that you don't have that feeling towards, things that that you'll easily be able to get rid of. The ones you don't feel that connection to. That's what's going to help you to build your confidence and your decluttering muscle, as it were. You know, if you were going to the gym for the first time, you wouldn't head straight for the heaviest weights. So don't start decluttering by going straight for the sentimental stuff. Get yourself into a good, easy routine first and build from there. You can also temporarily say goodbye to that stuff. You know, if you're not sure about a few items, box them up, slide them out of the way, put some form of deadline on it, and then when the deadline comes, if you have not needed or used or wanted that stuff, maybe you've even completely forgot about it, that's what's going to make you feel better about getting rid of it. You're going to know that you won't need it in your life. You'll have been able to see and experience the fact that your life was no worse off without that stuff. It also really helps, I have found, to donate to a cause that is kind of close to your heart, or to gift something to a good friend. And that way you know that it's going to a good home. That's what makes it easier for me to let go of things sometimes, knowing that it's not just going to be sitting in a landfill, or it's not going to be sitting on a shelf somewhere forgotten, that it's actually going to be put to use by someone else. If it's going to a good home, it's easier to let it go. Another thing you really need to be aware of, and I discussed this in a recent video, but decluttering, it's just half the battle. You need to get that stuff out of your home, because otherwise it's going to lie around in piles, and over time it's going to get mixed back up with your regular stuff, and before you know it, it's back in regular rotation and your home is cluttered again. You really do not want to waste your decluttering time. You don't want to have to go back and have to re-declutter everything all over again. So when you have decided what you're decluttering, you have to kind of take that extra step and get the stuff out of your house in whatever way is most appropriate for that thing to leave your house. And not only that, but you also need to make sure that you are stopping, as much as possible, more clutter from coming into your home. I think that's the reality of modern day life. You know, you can declutter as much as you want, but the reality is there is going to be more stuff coming in some form or another. So what you want to do is try and minimize as much of that stuff coming in as possible. But also, there are going to be some things that you can't cut off at the source. You know, there is going to be papers, for example, coming in. There is going to be kind of messes that you're going to make as you go throughout your day. So you also need to have some form of simple, quick, regular tidying up routine. Decluttering alone is just going to cause piles, essentially. You're going to make decisions on what you want to get rid of, but then you need to follow through, actually get rid of that stuff so it's no longer just lying around your house, and then stopping yourself from having to do that job all over again. You want to see the benefits from your decluttering efforts, and you want to be able to maintain that clutter-free space. Belly rub time, apparently. But I think it's really important to have a heads up about this stuff. It's why I included it's why I included an obstacles section in each of the modules of my decluttering course. It's why I'm creating this video. It's to give you the tools and the confidence to deal with whatever is thrown at you. You know, I could give you all the tips, all the advice, all of the hacks, all of the secrets, but the reality is, if you come up against an obstacle that you weren't expecting, that nobody had ever kind of talked about or mentioned, you're probably going to feel discouraged. You're not going to know what to do. You're going to think that you're making some mistake, or that it's not for you, and you may actually stop. So I really wanted to kind of give you this little bit of a warning, I guess, but just so you know, so that you are armed when you do go into your decluttering battle. You know exactly what to expect, and when it does arise, you won't be blindsided. It'll be not what you were expecting, but you'll know that it was a possibility, and you will know how to deal with it so that you can overcome that obstacle as quickly as possible and get on with your journey so that you can get closer to creating that clutter-free home. She's so cute. Check out the description, because I have loads more recommendations for you, more videos, books that I recommend. And until next time, go raibh míle maith. She's gone. Agus beidh mé sibh go luath. Slán to you. Ready to go? Let's go.